The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber slid open with a deep hum. Ambassador Rebecca Hayes walked forward, her heart pounding beneath her formal uniform. Behind her, Commander David Mitchell and Dr. Emily Ross followed in silence. This was humanity's moment. 5 years of preparation had led to this single meeting. The chamber was enormous. Seats rose in circular tiers, reaching up toward a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond. 4 to 7 alien species sat in those seats, representing civilizations thousands of years older than Earth. Some were humanoid, others were completely foreign. Floating jellyfish-like beings, massive reptilian creatures, and beings made of what looked like living crystal. All of them watched as the 3 humans approached the center platform. Rebecca felt small. She felt young. But she kept her head high. Executive Wrath presided over the council from the highest seat. He was Velthrani, a species that controlled much of the council's power. Standing 3 meters tall with pale blue skin and 4 muscular arms, he looked down at Rebecca with cold black eyes. His face showed no emotion. "The species from Earth," Wrath said, his voice deep and resonant. "You may present your petition." Rebecca activated the holographic projector in her hand. Images appeared in the air around her. Earth spinning in space, its blue oceans and green continents. Human cities with towers reaching toward the sky. Spacecraft breaking through the light barrier in brilliant flashes. Medical centers where diseases were cured. Farms feeding billions. The unified planetary government hall where all nations had finally come together. "Honored Council," Rebecca began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Humanity comes before you seeking membership. We have achieved faster-than-light travel. We have established peaceful colonies on 12 worlds. We have unified our entire planet under one democratic government after centuries of division. We offer our knowledge, our resources, and our commitment to peace." She showed more images. Fusion reactors that could power entire worlds. Medical technology that could extend life and cure illness. Agricultural methods that could feed hungry populations. Cultural achievements in art, music, and literature from hundreds of human traditions. The presentation lasted 20 minutes. When Rebecca finished, silence filled the chamber. It was not a good silence. Executive Wrath leaned forward slightly. "Tell me, Ambassador Hayes, how many wars did your species fight in the last 100 years? Rebecca felt her stomach tighten. "We had conflicts, yes. But we learned from them. We grew beyond them. Our unified government shows that we can overcome our differences and work together for common goals." 43 major wars, Wrath said, cutting her off. Thousands of smaller conflicts. Millions dead. Your species has barely maintained 50 years of planetary peace. He gestured to the other council members. "We require a minimum of 200 years of uninterrupted peace. You fail this basic requirement." "But we've changed," Rebecca protested. "We've evolved. Our technology shows our advancement. Our unified government proves we can cooperate." A reptilian counselor from the 3rd tier spoke up, his voice hissing. "Your technology is primitive. You reverse engineer crashed vessels and claim innovation. Your so-called advancements are crude copies of principles we mastered millennia ago." "That's not fair," Rebecca said, her voice rising slightly. "We developed our faster-than-light drive independently. We created our medical technology through our own research. We didn't steal anything." "Enough," Wrath commanded. The single word silenced the chamber. "Your species shows all the markers of predatory aggression. You evolved from pack hunters. Your entertainment glorifies violence. Your history is an endless cycle of conflict and conquest. You build weapons capable of destroying your own world and congratulate yourselves for restraint in not using them." David Mitchell stepped closer to Rebecca. She could feel his anger radiating like heat. Emily Ross stood frozen, her face pale. "Every species here evolved from something," Rebecca said, her voice tight. "You can't judge us for our origins." "We judge you by your actions," said another counselor, a being of floating membranes and soft light. "You reach for the stars before learning wisdom. You seek power before understanding responsibility. You are children playing with fire." Wrath stood to his full imposing height. "The verdict of this council is unanimous. Humanity is denied membership. You lack the maturity, the temperament, and the moral foundation to sit among civilized species." He paused, and Rebecca saw something cruel flash in his eyes. "Your species wages war on itself over trivial differences. You consume resources with reckless abandon. You demonstrate predatory instincts unsuitable for civilized cooperation. His voice dropped lower, each word landing like a hammer blow. We do not seat savages at the table of the enlightened. The words echoed through the chamber. Rebecca felt as if she'd been physically struck. 4 to 7 species watching her, waiting to see how humanity would react to this humiliation. Behind her, David's breathing had become harsh. Emily made a small sound of distress. Rebecca forced herself to breathe slowly, to think clearly. I see, she said quietly. Is there an appeals process? Not for species in your category, Vrath replied. You may reapply in 100 years. If you survive that long. 100 years. This council has more important matters now. You are dismissed. Rebecca stood motionless for 3 long heartbeats. Every instinct screamed at her to shout, to argue, to fight. But she knew that would only prove their point. So instead, she bowed slightly. Thank you for your time, Executive Wrath. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her back straight. Her head high. David and Emily followed. The massive doors closed behind them with a boom that seemed to echo in Rebecca's chest. In the antechamber beyond, David finally exploded. They called us savages. After everything we've accomplished. I know, Rebecca said softly. We unified 7 billion people. We ended planetary warfare. We developed technology they claimed was impossible for a species our age. I know. So what do we do now? Emily asked, her voice small. Rebecca walked to the viewing window. Beyond it, stars stretched into infinity. Somewhere out there was Earth. Home. Billions of people waiting to hear if humanity had been accepted into the galactic community. She thought about Vratha's words. Savages. Unworthy. Too violent. Too young. And slowly, Rebecca smiled. We go home, she said. We tell them what happened. And then? David asked. And then we show them what humanity does best when someone tells us we're not good enough. Her smile widened. We prove them wrong. How? Rebecca turned to face her team. If they won't give us a seat at their table, then we'll build our own table. And ours will be better. 3 weeks later, Rebecca stood before Earth's planetary assembly and billions of watching citizens. She told them about the rejection. She told them about the insults. She told them humanity had been called savage and unworthy. Then she smiled and said something that would change galactic history. They don't want us at their table? We don't need their table. We'll build our own. And our table will have room for everyone they rejected. Everyone they dismissed. 5 years had passed since the rejection. Captain Rachel Morgan stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Horizon, watching a small green planet grow larger on the viewscreen. This was Cleaver, home to the Cliven people. A species the Galactic Council had ignored for 70 years. Captain, we're receiving a transmission, said Lieutenant Peter Hayes at the communications station. They sound frightened. Rachel wasn't surprised. The Clivens had rarely seen ships from other worlds. When they did, it usually meant the Council was demanding resources or tribute. Tell them we're from Earth. Tell them we're here to help, not to take. The Cliven voice that responded was weak and trembling. Earth? We do not know this world. What do you want from us? Nothing, Rachel replied calmly. We want to offer you something. May we land? There was a long pause. Then permission was granted. The planet's surface was beautiful but dying. Rachel could see it from the shuttle window as they descended. Brown patches spread across what should have been green forests. Rivers ran dry. Cities looked half-abandoned. Dr. William Foster, the medical officer beside her, shook his head sadly. The plague, he said. It's worse than the reports indicated. The Cliven leaders met them in a simple building that served as their government center. They were small beings, barely reaching Rachel's waist, with soft gray fur and large worried eyes. Their leader, Elder Tiva, looked exhausted. You say you come to help, Tiva said quietly. Others have said this before. They studied our plague. They took samples. They promised cures. Then they left and never returned. The council said our world was not worth the resources needed to help us. Rachel knelt down to meet Tiva's eyes at the same level. The council rejected us too. They called us savages. Unworthy. So we decided to help the species they abandoned. She gestured to Dr. Foster, who opened his medical case. We brought medicine. We brought doctors. We brought equipment. And we're not leaving until your people are well. Tiva's eyes widened. Why? What do you want in return? Friendship, Rachel said simply. If you want it. And if someday you can help another species in need, we hope you will. Over the next 3 months, human medical teams worked alongside Cliven doctors. The cure wasn't easy, but human genetic technology had solved similar problems on Earth. Slowly, the plague began to retreat. Cliven children who had been sick grew healthy again. Fields began to turn green as farmers returned to work. Rachel watched it happen and felt something warm in her chest. This was what humanity could do. Not conquer. Not dominate. Help. When it was time to leave, thousands of Clivens gathered at the landing site. Elder Tiva stood before Rachel with tears in his large eyes. The council had the power to save us for 70 years, Tiva said, his voice carrying across the crowd. They chose not to. You arrived and chose differently. Cleaver will not forget. We stand with Earth. Rachel smiled. Then you're part of something we're building. We call it the Terran Alliance. Any species that wants to join is welcome. No applications. No judgments. Just partnership. Tiva nodded firmly. Cleaver joins. That was the 16th species to join the Alliance. But it wouldn't be the last. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Commander James Carter negotiated with the then Nix, an insectoid species the Council had rejected for being too aggressive. The then Nix had been defending themselves from pirates the Council ignored. James offered military protection and defensive technology. The then Nix joined the Alliance. Ambassador Helen Wright met with the Barak, silicon-based lifeforms the Council considered too alien to understand. Helen spent months learning their unique form of communication. When she finally succeeded, the Barak were amazed that anyone had bothered to try. They joined the Alliance. Engineer Thomas Blake helped the Nordani rebuild their infrastructure after a natural disaster. The Council had sent observers but no aid, claiming the Nordani needed to solve their own problems to prove their worth. Thomas and his team worked alongside the Nordani for a year. The grateful species became Alliance members. Back on Earth, President Sarah Collins addressed the Planetary Assembly with a growing star map behind her. 25 species now belonged to the Terran Alliance. Red dots on the map showed their worlds, connected by lines of trade and communication. What we're building is unprecedented, Sarah said. Not an empire. Not a hierarchy. A true alliance of equals. We share technology freely. We defend each other. We help each other grow. She paused, looking at the map. The Council is starting to notice. They've sent warnings. They say we're disrupting the established galactic order. They're right. We are. The assembly erupted in applause. But not everyone on Earth was celebrating. In a secure military facility, Admiral Robert Stone met with his top officers. On their screens were Council fleet movements. Warships gathering near Council borders. Intelligence reports of emergency sessions. They're getting nervous, said Colonel Jennifer Mills. 25 species have left their sphere of influence in 5 years. That's unprecedented. And our alliance controls 3 major trade routes now. Robert nodded slowly. The Council ruled through economic pressure and the threat of exclusion. We've created an alternative. They can't exclude us anymore because we don't need them. So what will they do? Jennifer asked. What powers always do when they feel threatened, Robert said grimly. They'll try to force us back into line. He pulled up recent intelligence. Council ships had stopped an Alliance merchant vessel in neutral space. They demanded inspections, imposed fines, and delayed the ship for days. It was a warning shot. We need to be ready, Robert said. The Council thinks we're weak. They think because we're young, we'll back down. Will we? Asked another officer. Robert smiled coldly. Not a chance. But we won't start a fight either. We'll show them exactly what humanity learned from all those wars they condemned us for. Back aboard the Horizon, Rachel received new orders. The Council had established a blockade near Alliance territory. They were stopping trade ships and demanding they end their Alliance agreements. Captain, what do we do? Peter asked. Rachel looked at her crew. Humans who had volunteered for this mission not for glory, but to help. She thought about the Clivens, healthy and thriving now. About the then Nix, finally safe from pirates. About 23 other species who had found hope through the Alliance. We keep going, she said firmly. The Council can make threats. But they can't make us abandon our friends. She opened a communication channel to Earth Command. This is Captain Morgan. Requesting permission to proceed through the blockade zone. The response came from Admiral Stone himself. His voice was calm and confident. Permission granted, Captain. And Captain? You won't be alone. It's time we showed the Council what the Terran Alliance really means. Rachel smiled as her sensors detected new signatures. Ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. Dozens of them. Not just human vessels, but Cliven ships, their Nyx fighters, barrack cruisers, and others. The Alliance fleet assembling together. All ships, this is Captain Morgan, she broadcast. We're going through. Stay in formation. Admiral Robert Stone sat in the command chair of the Earth Defense ship Defiance, watching the tactical display. Ahead, 30 Council warships formed a blockade line across the trade route. Behind him, the combined Terran Alliance fleet held position. 50 ships from 12 different species, waiting for his command. Admiral, the Council fleet is hailing us, said Communications Officer Lisa Parker. Put them through. A Velthrani commander appeared on the main screen. His forearms were crossed, his expression arrogant. This space is now under Council authority. Turn back immediately or face consequences. Robert leaned forward calmly. This is neutral space. You have no legal authority here. We're exercising our right to free passage. The Council determines what is legal, the commander replied. Your so-called alliance is illegal. These species belong under Council guidance. You are criminals harboring fugitives. These species chose freely to join us, Robert said. They're not fugitives. They're free people making their own decisions. Irrelevant. Turn back now or we will open fire. Robert glanced at his tactical officer, Commander Mark Taylor. Mark nodded slightly. Everything was ready. We're coming through, Robert said simply. What you do next is your choice. He cut the transmission. All ships, begin forward movement. Defensive formations. Shields to maximum. Weapons ready but do not lock on targets. Robert's voice was steady across the fleet channel. Remember, we fire only if fired upon. Show them what we can do, but we're not here to kill anyone. The Alliance fleet moved forward slowly, steadily. The Council ships responded immediately, their weapons lighting up as they locked onto Alliance vessels. Admiral, they're targeting us, Mark reported. Multiple weapons locks. They're preparing to fire. Hold course. Shields only. The Council commander's voice cut through the channel. This is your final warning. Stop or we will destroy you. Robert didn't respond. The Alliance fleet continued advancing. The Council ships opened fire. Energy beams and projectiles lanced through space toward the Alliance fleet. On the Defiance bridge, crew members tensed. But Robert remained calm, watching his screens. The Alliance shields held easily. Too easily. The Council weapons splashed harmlessly against the defensive barriers like water against stone. Their weapons aren't penetrating, Mark said, surprise in his voice. Not even close. No, they wouldn't, Robert replied quietly. Those ships use technology that's 1,000 years old. They never needed to improve because nobody challenged them. He pressed a button. All ships, pattern Delta. Show them what they're dealing with. The Alliance fleet suddenly accelerated. Ships that had been moving slowly now darted forward at impossible speeds. They wove between the Council vessels in patterns too fast to track. Human ships, built with lessons learned from centuries of warfare, moved with precision that made the Council fleet look frozen in place. Within seconds, the Alliance fleet had scattered, surrounding the Council blockade completely. Every Council ship now had 3 Alliance vessels around it, positioned perfectly to strike from multiple angles. On the Council flagship, alarms blared. Their commander stared at his screens in disbelief. How had the enemy moved so fast? How had they been surrounded so quickly? Admiral, the Council ships are trying to reposition, Mark reported. They're attempting to reform their line. Don't let them, Robert ordered. Stay with them. Match every move. I want them to understand they can't escape. The Alliance ships moved like dancers, anticipating every Council maneuver before it happened. When Council ships tried to turn, Alliance vessels were already there. When they tried to accelerate, Alliance ships matched their speed effortlessly. Target their weapons systems, Robert commanded. Disable only. I don't want casualties. Precise beams from Alliance ships struck Council vessels. Not to destroy, but to disable. Weapon arrays sparked and went dark. Engine systems flickered. Within minutes, half the Council fleet was defenseless. The Council commander's face reappeared on screen, no longer arrogant. He looked shocked and frightened. What are you doing? Stop this attack. Attack. Robert raised an eyebrow. We haven't attacked you. We've simply defended ourselves and demonstrated our capabilities. If we wanted to attack, your ships would already be destroyed. He gestured to his tactical display. You opened fire on us in neutral space. That was your choice. We responded by showing you that your weapons can't touch us and your ships can't outmaneuver us. Every vessel in your fleet is now surrounded. Your weapons are disabled. Your shields are failing. The council commander's eyes widened as he checked his own screens and realized the truth. But here's what we're not doing, Robert continued, his voice firm. We're not destroying your ships. We're not killing your crews. We could have. Easily. We chose not to. He leaned forward. You called us savages. You said we were too violent for civilized company. But when you attacked us, we didn't respond with violence. We responded with mercy. Around the battlefield, Alliance ships held their positions. Council vessels drifted, disabled but intact. No casualties. No deaths. Just a clear demonstration of overwhelming superiority tempered with restraint. Now, Robert said quietly, you're going to move your ships away from this trade route. You're going to return to Council space. And you're going to tell your leadership exactly what happened here. The Council commander's face showed confusion and humiliation. They'll never believe that you defeated us without destroying us. They'll believe it when they see the recordings, Robert replied. Every ship in your fleet has logs and sensors. They'll see everything. How we could have destroyed you. How we chose not to. He paused, letting that sink in. The Terran Alliance isn't your enemy. We never were. We just want to exist freely without your permission. We want to help species you abandoned. We want to trade and grow and live in peace. His voice hardened slightly. But if you force us to fight, understand this, we learned warfare in ways you never had to. We got good at it because we had no choice. And we learned something else too. We learned when to stop. The Council commander said nothing. Go home, Robert said. Tell them what you saw. Tell them the Alliance isn't going away. Tell them we want peace, but we won't be pushed around. He smiled slightly. And tell them if they're smart, they'll start talking instead of shooting. He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. All ships, stand down. Let them go. Mark, send the full battle recording to Earth Command and to every Alliance member. I want everyone to see what happened here. As the disabled Council ships slowly limped away, rescued by their still functional vessels, the Alliance fleet held position. They had won without firing a single aggressive shot. They had demonstrated power without cruelty. Back on Earth, President Sarah Collins watched the battle recording with other government leaders. When it ended, the room was silent. They're going to see this, said Defense Minister George Adams. Every species in Council space is going to watch this recording. Sarah nodded slowly. They'll see that the Council fleet couldn't protect them. They'll see that we're stronger than they thought. The Council chamber was in chaos. Executive Wrath stood at his seat, his forearms raised for silence, but the shouting continued. 4 to 7 species had once sat united in this chamber. Now they were fracturing before his eyes. Order. Wrath's voice boomed through the space. We must have order. Slowly, reluctantly, the noise subsided. A then-Nix counselor who had secretly been communicating with the Alliance stood up. His insectoid features made his expressions hard to read, but his voice carried clear frustration. The humans defeated our entire peacekeeping fleet without firing a single aggressive shot, he said. They disabled our ships and let them go. They showed mercy when they could have shown destruction. And what do? We call emergency sessions to discuss revenge. They violated Council authority, Wrath snapped. They must be punished. What authority? Demanded a reptilian counselor from a smaller species. The authority that ignored the Cliven plague for 70 years? The authority that refused to help the Nordani after their disaster? The humans did what we should have done. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Wrath slammed one of his massive fists on his seat's armrest. They are building a rival power structure. They are stealing our member species and resources. They threaten everything we've built. Or, said another counselor quietly, they are showing us what we've become. Corrupt. Stagnant. More interested in maintaining power than actually helping anyone. The chamber erupted again. Species that had been silent for decades were suddenly vocal. Old grievances surfaced. Small species accused larger ones of exploitation. Newer members questioned why they paid tribute while receiving little protection. On Earth, Ambassador Rebecca Hayes watched a live feed of the Council session with satisfaction. Beside her, President Sarah Collins smiled. They're tearing themselves apart, Sarah said. Not all of them, Rebecca replied. Look at the voting blocks forming. About 15 species still support Vrath completely. Another 20 are on the fence. But 12 are openly sympathetic to us now. As if on cue, something unprecedented happened on the broadcast. A junior counselor from the Corthan species stood up. The Corthans had been council members for 600 years, loyal and reliable. What he said next shocked everyone. I move that we open formal negotiations with the Terran Alliance, he announced. Not as criminals to be punished, but as equals to be respected. The chamber fell silent. Vratha's face darkened. You cannot be serious. You would negotiate with rebels. They are not rebels, the Corthan replied. They were never part of the council to rebel against. They're an independent alliance doing what they choose in neutral space. And they're doing it better than we are. Traitor, Vrath hissed. No, the Corthan said calmly. I'm being practical. We just watched 30 of our best warships get defeated without a single human casualty. We watched the humans show mercy we probably wouldn't have shown. And we're watching 12 of our member species secretly negotiate with them already. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Yes, the Corthan continued. Did you think we didn't know? Intelligence reports show diplomatic channels open between human ambassadors and at least 12 council members. They're not hiding it anymore. Vrath looked around the chamber with growing anger. Which species? Identify yourselves now. No one moved. But the silence was telling. Meanwhile, on a diplomatic station in neutral space, Captain Rachel Morgan met with representatives from 3 council species. They had come in secret, their ships using civilian transponders to avoid detection. We cannot openly join the alliance yet, said one representative, a floating being of soft light. Our governments are still debating. But we want to establish trade agreements. Quietly. Rachel nodded. We understand. The alliance welcomes trade with anyone, council member or not. We're not trying to destroy the council. We just want to exist alongside it. The hardliners like Vrath see it differently, another representative said. They view any alternative power structure as a threat. They're calling for military action. Then they're fools, Rachel replied. We demonstrated what would happen if they choose war. We could have destroyed that fleet. We didn't. But if they push us again, we'll respond the same way. Overwhelming force with minimal casualties. Back on Earth, a different kind of meeting was taking place. Admiral Robert Stone briefed his officers on intelligence reports. The council is fracturing faster than we expected, he said, displaying a chart showing political divisions. Vrath and the hardliners control maybe 15 species now. The rest are either sympathetic to us or neutral. But Vrath isn't giving up. What's his play? Asked Commander Mark Taylor. He's trying to hold the council together through fear, Robert explained. He's spreading propaganda that we're violent conquerors. That we'll enslave species that join us. That we're the real threat. Will it work? Mark asked. Robert pulled up another display showing human aid missions across Alliance space. Medical teams. Engineering corps. Agricultural specialists. All working alongside alien species as equals. Not if we keep doing what we're doing, he said. Actions speak louder than propaganda. Every species we help, every time we choose cooperation over conquest, we prove Vrath wrong. On a council world called Thenis, something remarkable happened. Human aid workers had arrived 3 weeks earlier to help with a natural disaster that had destroyed coastal cities. The council had sent observers but no real help, citing budget concerns. The humans brought construction equipment, medical supplies, and thousands of volunteers. They worked alongside the then Nyx people, rebuilding homes and infrastructure. They asked for nothing in return. When the then Nyx government announced they were leaving the council to join the Terran Alliance, massive crowds celebrated in the streets. Council observers watched helplessly as their authority crumbled. The broadcast of the then Nyx celebration reached the council chamber during another emergency session. Councilors watched in stunned silence as then Nyx citizens held signs reading "Thank you Earth," and the Alliance showed us what real friendship means. Vrath stood abruptly. This is unacceptable. The then Nyx are in violation of their council charter. We must respond with force. With what force? Demanded the Corthan councillor. Our fleet was humiliated. Our authority is questioned. And you want to attack a species for choosing freedom? They chose rebellion. Vrath shouted. They chose hope, the Corthan shot back. Something we stopped offering centuries ago. He looked around the chamber at the other counselors. I'm done pretending. Cortha formally requests negotiations with the Terran Alliance regarding potential membership. We're not alone in this. I know at least 8 other species planning the same. This time, 8 counselors stood up in acknowledgement. Vrath stared at them in disbelief. You're destroying everything we built. No, the Corthan said quietly. We're escaping something that was already dying. The council stopped serving its members long ago. It only serves itself now. The humans showed us there's another way. Within hours, the political earthquake hit full force. 18 months had passed since the blockade confrontation. Ambassador Rebecca Hayes stood in what used to be the Galactic Council chamber, but everything had changed. The old tiered seats that elevated some species above others were gone. Workers from a dozen different worlds were installing something new in their place. A circular table. Massive and elegant, with seats arranged in a perfect ring. No seat higher than another. No positions of power. Just equals sitting together. Rebecca smiled at the symbolism. It was perfect. Ambassador Hayes, called a familiar voice. Elder Tiva of the Clivens approached, his small form moving with the energy of someone healthy and happy. Is it really happening? Is the old council truly finished? It's finished, Rebecca confirmed. This morning, the final vote was counted. 34 of the original 47 council species voted to dissolve the old system and join the new Federation of Free Worlds. Tiva's large eyes shimmered with emotion. When you saved my people from the plague, I never imagined it would lead to this. The entire galaxy restructured. We didn't restructure it, Rebecca said gently. Everyone did, together. We just showed what was possible. The dissolution of the Galactic Council had not been peaceful. Executor Vrath and 13 loyal species had fought desperately to maintain their power. They had threatened sanctions, military action, and isolation for any species that defected. But threats only work when people fear you. And after the blockade demonstration, fear had shifted. Species no longer feared human aggression. They feared being left behind in the old, dying system while others joined something better. The economic reality had been undeniable. The Terran Alliance controlled major trade routes, shared technology freely, and welcomed all species equally. Council worlds still loyal to Vrath saw their economies struggling while Alliance members thrived. Citizens on Council worlds watched broadcasts of Alliance cooperation and demanded their governments make changes. When the Corthan species officially left the Council, the dam broke completely. Within 6 months, 20 more species followed. The Council couldn't function with so few members. Emergency sessions accomplished nothing. Vratha's authority collapsed as even his closest allies began questioning his leadership. Finally, 3 months ago, a vote was called. Not to reform the Council, but to end it entirely and create something new. Something based on the alliance model that humanity had pioneered. The vote passed with overwhelming support. Now, in the rebuilt chamber, representatives from 68 species gathered. The original council members who had joined the new federation, plus the alliance species, plus newly contacted civilizations who had been inspired by what they saw happening. President Sarah Collins arrived from Earth for the founding ceremony. She walked through the chamber, marveling at the diversity. Beings of flesh, crystal, energy, and stranger forms all working together preparing for the historic moment. Admiral Robert Stone accompanied her, though he wore civilian clothes now. With the military tensions resolved, he had accepted a new role as Director of Defense Cooperation, helping species share defensive technology and strategies. Strange to think 5 years ago we were rejected as savages, he said to Sarah quietly. We were rejected, Sarah replied. But we weren't destroyed by it. We built something better. Captain Rachel Morgan was there too, now promoted to Admiral and serving as the first commander of the Federation Joint Fleet. A fleet composed of ships from dozens of worlds, working together for mutual defense and exploration. The ceremony began at sunset, with light from the local star streaming through the chamber's transparent dome. A Cliven representative spoke first, representing the smaller species who had been ignored for so long. 4 generations, my people suffered while those with power looked away, Elder Tiva said, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Then one species arrived who had been rejected just like us. They didn't seek revenge. They didn't build an empire. They built friendships. Today, we honor that spirit by creating a government where all voices matter equally. Other species spoke. The Thenniks talked about finally having security from pirates. The Nordani described the infrastructure humans had helped rebuild. The Corthans explained why they had abandoned 600 years of council membership for something better. Then it was Rebecca's turn to speak. She stood at the circular table, touching its smooth surface. When Earth was denied a seat at the council table, we were told we weren't worthy, she began. We were too young, too violent, too savage. Those words hurt. But they also taught us something important. She looked around at the assembled representatives. They taught us that the problem wasn't us. The problem was the table itself. A table with hierarchy, with some species above others, with power concentrated in a few hands. That table was never going to welcome equals because it was built on inequality. Rebecca smiled. So we built a different table. This table. Where everyone sits at the same level. Where decisions are made together. Where no species is too small to matter or too different to belong. She paused, emotion thick in her voice. 5 years ago, humanity was alone, rejected, and humiliated. Today, we stand with 6 to 7 other species in a federation built on mutual respect. We didn't take the galaxy's table. We invited the galaxy to build a better one with us. The chamber erupted in sounds of approval, different for each species. Cheers, harmonics, light patterns, and chemical signals all expressing the same sentiment. Agreement. Hope. Unity. The formal vote followed. Each species, from the largest to the smallest, cast their vote to establish the Federation of Free Worlds. The vote was unanimous. 68 species choosing cooperation over hierarchy. When the ceremony ended, Rebecca found herself standing at a viewport with Sarah and Robert, watching ships from countless worlds arriving and departing in peaceful traffic patterns. Vrath and his holdouts established their own coalition, Robert mentioned. 13 species still loyal to the old ways. They're calling themselves the True Council. Let them, Sarah said calmly. They're welcome to govern themselves however they choose. We're not forcing anyone to join us. They'll fail, Rebecca predicted. Not because we'll attack them, but because their people will see what we've built and demand better. Change is already happening on some of those worlds. She was right. Even now, protest movements on several True Council worlds were calling for their governments to reconsider. Citizens who saw Alliance prosperity and freedom wanted the same for themselves. Do you think they'll ever join us? Robert asked. Eventually, Sarah replied. Maybe in 5 years. Maybe in 50. But doors stay open in the Federation. When they are ready to sit as equals instead of rulers, they'll be welcome. A young officer approached with a data pad. Madam President, we're receiving a transmission from a newly discovered species at the edge of explored space.